Hey, good morning. This is Richard Hsu, host of Hsu Untied. And this morning, I'm really thrilled to have with me as my guest Jessica Rosenberg, who's a partner at Kasowitz Benson. Jessica, welcome to the program.
Hi, Richard. Thanks for having me.
So, Jessica, why don't you start by telling me why you went to law school in the first place?
Sure. Well, my grandfather was actually a notable civil rights attorney
Oh,
who worked on a number of very interesting cases in the 1930s. And my father had his own law practice for over 35 years.
hmm.
So I grew up in a house where the profession of law was very respected. It was an honorable trade. It was something that you did to be an advocate for others. And so I grew up with that sense that it was really one of the highest professions that you could do in life. And that's why I went into it.
Oh, interesting. So you would literally, I mean, this is a dinner time conversation, I'm assuming your father and grandfather would talk about cases that they're working on?
Yes, my grandfather did often. He was actually involved in a very famous case in American law where 9 Black men in Scottsboro, Alabama, were accused of raping 2 white women. And he went down there with International Labor Defense and helped on the defense of that case. So it's something that came up, and I heard lots of stories about as a child.
Huh. What kind of law did your father practice?
My father practiced personal injury and medical malpractice. He had his own firm,
Hmm.
and he loved law. I mean, he loved also being a trial lawyer was a big
Hmm.
part of both of their practices. And I think that that's something that was instilled in me. I would go to court with him and watch him try cases. And as a young girl, found that the courtroom was a place I felt comfortable, that I loved. Um, and that's I think how I ended up here.
No, that's so cool. So when you got to law school, what'd you think? Was it different than what you expected? Or what did you think
Well,
about law school?
I also loved language. I was an English major in college,
Hmm.
so I loved analyzing texts, poetry, Shakespeare, and so I think that translated easily to law school, where
Good.
you took a statute and tried to analyze it or a case.
Well, it sounds like law school must have fit you like a glove then. Between that
It,
and kind of the upbringing, it must have been a really, you must have felt right
it,
at
it
home.
fit me like a glove, and the thing that really fit me was I went to Fordham Law. And there was a group called the Brendan Moore Trial Advocates who did mock trial competitions. And so that's where I really found who I was as a trial attorney. And I traveled all across the country winning mock trial competitions throughout law school.
Yeah. So I'm guessing, obviously you're a litigator. I'm guessing that going to litigation was a no-brainer, or did you even briefly flirt with being a transactional lawyer or doing something else in any way?
It, it was a no-brainer. I came out of law school and I said, how can I try cases? Where can I go? And someone said to me, the place to try the most cases is the district attorney's office. So I went to the Manhattan DA's office, New York County, where I just got to try dozens of cases: assaults, drug cases, identity theft, domestic violence. They gave you a box. They said, work up the case and go and try it in front of a jury. And
Wow.
so that's where I really, learned how I was in the courtroom, my presentation, and how to try and win cases.
I'm envisioning a lot of calls to your dad and grandfather during that
Oh,
time.
my dad came and watched a bunch of them. He was in the audience while I was giving the closing argument to the jury. He was there the whole time.
Did your grandfather get to see you as well?
No, my grandfather passed when I was 13, so
Oh,
he didn't. But I'm sure he would be very proud.
he's smiling from wherever he is about you now, definitely.
Yeah.
So then, how did you get into the practice that you're currently in? You obviously didn't do that forever, but somehow you wandered your way back to private practice, obviously.
Right. So after leaving the DA's office, I wanted a home where people were real litigators, where they went to court, where clients looked to the firm, sometimes even substituting out of their current attorney to come to a firm where they knew they'd have the most aggressive real trial lawyers. And that was Kasowitz. I mean,
Mm.
they just had the reputation. Mark Kasowitz is just a legendary litigator. And so this was the only place I wanted to go.
Interesting.
And I was a commercial litigator at first, but I quickly learned that the employment group had just a huge volume of cases, lots of arbitrations that are quicker, that go to arbitration very quickly.
Mm.
And I also found that I love the human element of employment law.
Hmm.
It was similar to the criminal realm. It's very human. There are people involved, there are emotions, and I was drawn to that.
Hmm.
And I was drawn to helping employers figure out very tricky employee situations.
Hmm.
So it just was a natural progression where I saw an opening, I saw an opportunity, and I went for it.
Hmm. So how often do you get to try cases now or be in arbitration? I mean, what would you say? A few times a year? What would you say?
Yeah, yeah. I think 1 to 2 large arbitrations or trials a year has been standard in my practice.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, clients sometimes seek us out because we do take things to trial. Many litigators tend to settle cases,
Yeah.
but we really try them. And sometimes, I mean, litigation isn't always the best option, but sometimes you have no choice,
Yeah.
especially when there are claims brought against companies that just don't have any merit. I mean, mostly in employment law, we see there's lots of different disputes, right? There's disputes about, independent contractors versus employees, what their status is, wage and hour disputes, restrictive covenants, contract disputes about compensation, discrimination, sexual harassment, and a lot of disputes arise around terminations. So when an employee is terminated, the company can have a legitimate business reason for it, but people sometimes assume that it's for a discriminatory reason.
Mm.
So, we do employer side, management side defense. And when a claim comes in that just doesn't have merit, my clients, just can't, as a business decision, pay everyone who brings a claim. So we end up trying a lot of these cases where the just claims are frivolous, and the company has to draw a line in the sand and defend itself.
Now, a lot of people think, a lot of people shy away from litigation in these kind of cases because of the stress that they create. Sounds like you kind of thrive in that, or is it still pretty stressful?
I mean, I guess that's a good question. I don't find it stressful because I lead with the facts. I find that the key is to get to the truth of the matter. And look, there are situations where I'm representing an employer and we do an internal investigation and we decide these aren't the best facts. We should come to a resolution on this matter. So once you have the facts on your side, the stress of making an argument and proving your case, it isn't that hard. I do thrive in those areas. I like the challenge of convincing a fact finder why they should side with us. So I don't find it stressful. I find it enjoyable that the truth comes to light.
Mm-hmm. Do you miss it sounds like you're mostly defense side lawyer now. Do you miss being kind of on the plaintiff side from your DA days where you're kind of trying to prove your case, or do you miss that at all?
Well, that's a good question. I like to defend cases like I'm the plaintiff, because I like to take a very aggressive stance, especially like I said, where we have the facts on our side.
Yeah.
I like to, propound discovery demands and get written discovery from the other side. I like to make them work. So I don't really defend in the way that most people think of defense. I put the other side on their heels. And so I do, it's sort of the same thing.
Yeah, I get it. What is it you think? What is it about trials that you think that you really like? Is it the is it the high pressure stakes? Is it the on your feet kind of feeling? What is it that really makes it click for you?
I think it's really an art form, Richard. I think that the anatomy of a trial is so fascinating. The way the facts come out, the way they're presented, the way the fact finder hears them. It's really an incredible thing. The process is incredible, and understanding, how to prove your case is an art form. And so I just, each time I do it, I learn something new. Each time I do it, I find that I'm really impressed with the process and how it does lead to a just result in most cases. It's really incredible. So I believe in the legal system and the court system. I believe that it intends to find the truth. So I think it's really an amazing thing that we have in this country.
Do you get a chance to mentor younger lawyers and share some of these experiences? Is that something you enjoy doing?
Yes, I love that. We have a women's initiative committee here at Kasowitz, and we meet with all the women of the firm, and we talk about our experience and what led us here. And I think it's important for young lawyers to talk to practitioners about what their day-to-day is like. Every practice is so different. I mean, one of my best friends is the head of bankruptcy at another large firm, and her practice is so different from mine. And we often, we discuss the differences, but I think young lawyers don't always have insight into that in law school. They're learning the law and how to interpret the law, but they're not really seeing, like how employment law can be, quicker trials and more fast paced. So I try to share it as much as I can.
Yeah, totally. Well, it sounds like you obviously love what you do. Have you ever thought that you might try something else at some point in your career?
I'm not sure. I do love what I do. I mean, life is not always a straight line, but
Yeah.
I just really love where I practice and the flexibility it gives me to sort of take on challenges and help clients. I mean, that's the biggest thing. I used to say I'm on speed dial. I don't think people use that term anymore. I'm the pinned contact for all my clients, right? They're texting me, this thing just happened, emergency, someone's called the police on a manager. I'm in the day-to-day with my clients.
Yeah.
So I don't think I feel the need to go in-house anywhere, because I basically am the advisor in that way. And what's nice about employment law is I have clients across every industry. So I have private equity, real estate, fashion designers, transportation, you name it. Everyone has employees.
Everyone has employees. Yeah, yeah. Do you still talk law with your dad now and then?
I do. My dad is a great mentor. He's funny because recently I was telling him about, one of my cases that was going to trial. And he said, "Oh, the tables have turned. How many cases did I make you listen to?" And so, yeah, I like to get his advice and just share it with him. It's been really nice.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, Jessica, I really appreciate your taking the time. As you know, I've done a lot of interviews, and this was definitely one of the most fun that I've done.
Oh, thank you so much. It was great meeting you.
This is Richard Hsu and Jessica Rosenberg. Thanks.